Hello, and welcome to Intersect, a podcast where we find connection in each other's stories. Today, it is me, Lauren, and
Pastor Moon,
and
Htet.
We are so excited for our conversation today. We're going to be learning a little bit more about Htet and his story. So, welcome, Htet.
Thank you.
How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you guys?
Doing pretty good. So, I guess let's start off. Introduce yourself to listeners on the podcast.
Sure. So, my name is Htet. I am currently a medical laboratory science major here at Southern. I'm also, the Student Association VP. I'm from Indiana, the beautiful state of Indiana. I went to academy all my life. My family originates from the country of Burma, and my mom is Karen and my dad is Burmese. So that's kind of a little bit about myself. My parents were refugees from that country, so they got here 1999 in December. So
now is Karen, is that a people group in Burma?
Yeah, so that's like a ethnic group inside of Burma.
Okay.
So I guess the technical term for the country is Myanmar.
Okay.
And inside Myanmar, there's multiple different ethnic groups, and
Got
one
it.
of them is Karen.
All right, good. That's where the word currency comes from. Not really, just sorry. Dad joke, sorry, yeah.
Cool. So, how did you end up here at Southern?
Sure. So, how did I end up here at Southern? I've been in the Adventist system all my life, from kindergarten all the way through, academy. And I was originally actually planning on going to Andrews, but, God opened new doors. All my friends went to Andrews, but God opened new doors for me, and I took a stab at Southern. And I felt, it was probably like the more wiser economic choice for me. And I just did that, and I love it here, and it's great.
Nice.
Great. So, on Senate this year, Htet and I are on Senate. Htet is in charge, so he's my boss. You were working with this Htet initiative, and you were doing kind of a project for raising money for the school over there. And I thought that was an interesting story. So I wanted to bring it onto the podcast, share a little bit about why you brought this to Senate. Also, maybe you could share a little bit more about how you ended up on Senate and just kind of talk about why you're connected to this.
Yeah, so this is something that's been on my mind since, I was younger. And I guess the background of this, so the Htet initiative, the goal is to help internally displaced people in Myanmar. And so what's happening right now, if you guys don't know, there's currently a civil war going on. February of 2019, I believe, there was a military coup. And because of that, there are many individuals who have had to run away from home. And of course, this is something that has happened before, way back in the 80s and the 90s. That's how my parents came to America. And things were getting better, you could say, kind of. But then, of course, with the military coup, things got way worse. And now we are in a state of civil war. And currently there's, the military is, there's airstrikes happening on innocent villagers. And what's happening is, so there's refugee camps on the eastern and the western border of Myanmar, so in India and in Thailand. And if you're Karen, which is what my mom is, so you're usually on the eastern side, so Thailand, you border Thailand. And so there are refugee camps, and what's happening is parents are having to leave their homes with their children, but then there's no space in these refugee camps. So what's happening is many children are then left in front of these refugee camps or in villages near there because it's safer, and then the parents then have to run away in the jungles. So what's happening is there's an influx of children, without any caretakers. And thankfully, though, the Adventist missionaries have set up schools in these refugee camps and these outskirts, and there are missionaries there. And what they do is these schools are places where these children are taken care of. But of course, there's a need. There's not enough supplies. There's not enough, there's no dormitories, things like that. And so what my mission is, I'm working with ASAP Ministries.
And that stands for?
I actually do not know.
Okay.
But they are born out of, I think they're from Berrien.
Okay.
And so they work specifically in that area, Southeast Asia. And
Okay.
so they work hand in hand with the ethnic groups there just to supply like aid, support. And the way that it kind of all happened was one of my pastor in the church that I currently go to, he actually left to go back to Burma and to be a missionary. And so he's currently in the refugee camps, and he's currently ministering and, trying to make an impact because he saw that need and he took a chance. And that's kind of my contact. He works for ASCP Ministries. And so he kind of just, I have that connection there, and he introduced me to certain individuals. And I asked him, what can I do? And I felt as I was in a position where I could help. And I felt as though, if I didn't do anything, then that would be like detriment not only to myself, but then, I wouldn't be able to help the people that needed help. And so the goal is to raise funds in order to help build a dormitory and just give them school supplies and aid. And it's in the village of Htet. So there's a little like village in Htet. It's way on the outskirts. You have to get there on like a moped. Like you can't get there like with a car or anything. It's very, very secluded, which is part of the reason why it's kind of safer. But so what we're doing is, we're gonna try to, supply aid and just raise funds, and that's kind of what we're doing with the Htet initiative.
Okay. And I was just looking this up. So advocates for Southeast Asians and the persecuted,
Yeah.
which they're ASAP. I just got it. It's ASAP, as soon as possible. So that's cool. All right. And so part of your connecting with this, obviously your family's from Burma. So there's like family roots there, probably maybe even family over there. And I'm sorry, I missed maybe a bit there, but you connected to this project through a pastor?
Yeah, through my pastor who, one of my pastors, he saw the need and he decided to, leave here, and he's back at Burma, in the refugee camps, and he's ministering. Doing
So he's on the ground.
Yeah, he's on the ground. He's there.
And you already had relationship with him. So between talking to him and whatnot, then you're like,
he connected me to, the entity I needed to be connected to in order to, have a way to efficiently help, because it's one thing, especially when you're raising funds for certain entities, you have to be careful of like which organizations you're helping.
For sure.
And making sure the money gets where it needs to get to. And so ASAP Ministries has a pretty good track record. Yeah. And the doors open, so I just went.
That's awesome.
Super cool. So I love that we're being able to bring awareness to this situation, because I feel like that's a country not a lot of people know about. So share a little bit about, like, I know this just kind of started here at Southern, but have you been able to connect with someone else on campus who is connected to this?
So my roommates, so I live in Mississippi 5, and it's the stateside apartments. I have 3 other roommates, and they're all from the country of Myanmar. So it's Isaac, there's Josh Pong, and then there's Moang. They're all, the majority of us are Karen. I have Karen in us, but then there's Moang who's Chin, and that's on the, their people group reside on the western side of Myanmar.
Which would be bordering India.
Bordering India, yeah. And so we kind of have those roots, and we've kind of been working together. A lot of things are kind of still working out the details. Most of our fundraising is going to occur next semester. So right now I've been talking to ASAP, and we're just figuring out, what it's going to look like, especially for this undertaking, and trying to get school involved. And so I do have help. I do have a team. But also I've, presented my initiative to Student Association and our Student Senate, and they've all been on board, which is a great thing. And, a lot of doors have been opened. And on top of that, my little brother, he's also a student association member at his academy that he's at right now. And they recently went to a leadership conference with like the surrounding, other academies in the Lake Union Conference. And he was able to, make connections, make friends. And he kind of, I'm really super proud of him actually, but he's been able to recruit some of those academies. And so hopefully we'll be working with, academies across the Lake Union Conference.
Nice.
But yeah, doors have been opened, and so for us right now, it's just making sure that we lay the foundation so that we can be effective next semester in our fundraising efforts.
All right. So you're kind of in that process of putting all the pieces in place
Yeah.
so that when you put the invitation out there, people can really plug in.
For sure, yeah.
So you shared a lot about like a lot of doors being open and stuff. Maybe share a little bit about how your spiritual journey has been impacted, because I know this is like a mission field, and even though you're not there, have you actually ever been here?
Yeah, I have. To Burma?
To Burma?
Yeah, I have been.
Yeah, so you've been there and you've seen it. How have you been spiritually impacted in, because obviously that's why you're going for this, because it's the right thing to do. Share a little bit about that journey.
So ever since I was young, my parents have instilled in me, a mindset of service. And I think that just, it's one thing to say you're a Christian and to, know everything you need to know. But to actually live and to be in service is something that is really present on my heart. It's not enough for me to just know all the right things. I need to make sure that I'm serving. And so when I'm given an opportunity to serve, I should take a stab at it. I should at least try. And so in my, conversations with God and just working, building on that relationship I have with him, something that I've always told him is if I'm given an opportunity where I can serve, I will do everything I can to make sure that I don't say no, So even with signing up to be on essay, to be the VP, that was a door that was opened. I had no idea that I was going to do it really. I was a senator that year, and then next thing you know, someone said, hey, you should run for student association vice president. And I was like, I don't know. I'm not that. I don't think I'm that guy. I don't think I can, I don't have the, the popularity, you could say, or whatever. But, I decided to just go for it. I prayed about it. I decided to go for it. And because of that, multiple, even more doors were opened that have allowed me to, serve not only, my peers, but the school in general in a way that I could have never imagined. And it's been a great experience, especially on Senate, helping manage Senate and just being on the SA team. But on top of that, it's given me a platform that I wouldn't have had otherwise if I had said no.
So you made a decision to say, God, if there's an opportunity, I'm willing to pursue it.
Yeah.
I've heard what it is. You should serve. But that just brings to mind a couple things for me. One is there's this guy, Stephen Covey. He wrote this book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And he says, to know and not to do is not to know. It's like there's things that we can grow up with, we can be told all our life, but until we actually take a step out to do what we're learning, it's like we don't really know it. So that came to mind. And then the other thing that just sparked for me as you were saying that is that I think sometimes I'm 50, right? So I think we can all fall into this trap of well, God, just tell me what to do. Tell me what to do. Show me my life purpose and my life calling. And it's almost like it's this nebulous, or it may be a specific thing, but it's huge. It's I want to plant a mega church or whatever. I'm a pastor, so we think sometimes like that. But really, you may not know all the ins and outs of your life calling, but you've just said, you know what? If there's an opportunity and it seems like God's in it, I'm going to take that opportunity.
Yeah.
How do you think that impacts even just how we find our calling, maybe?
Yeah. I think the core of it is just, not being afraid, You have to have some type of faith in knowing that, my life is in God's hands. No matter where I go, no matter what I'm doing, my life is in his hands. And that's something that I've, been able to realize just through certain situations in my life where, I've been mad at God. I've felt as though he wasn't there. But then in retrospect, I look back and say, he was there that whole time. And now going forward, I can now know that, no matter what situation, whether I'm supposed to be in it or not, he's going to be right by my side. And so when I'm given those opportunities to serve, eventually, God will let me know, hey, take a step back. Hey, don't do this. Hey, you should do this. Just having that dialogue with him is super important, at least for me. So what that looks like is just, prayer. And I'm not the best, at like morning devotions and such, but
Yeah.
I have realized that connection, especially in the scriptures, is something that you can't. It has to occur.
Yeah.
Especially if you're someone who wants to serve and you want to be in line with what His purpose is for you. You need to be in scripture. Like, you need to pray. You need to
Yeah.
make sure you have that line of connection. And a lot of that is discipline. And I'm still working on that. And but that's kind of where I'm at right now, spiritually, you could say, and just learning how to have that faith.
Yeah, there's this thought in the book Steps to Christ that Jesus lived his life between the mountain and the multitude. It's like, and I envision him on the mountain, just those times where he'd come away and pray with his Father. But then the disciples would show up and they're like, wait a second, the multitude's out there, they're waiting for you. And so then he would go and mingle among the multitude. And so it's almost like our prayer life gives us power to serve, but then our life of service empowers our prayers.
No, for sure. That's something I've noticed. When I'm in service, that's when I feel the most connected to Christ. Even though I may not have the time to, have that devotion or have that scripture or that prayer, like the fact that I'm serving and I'm doing it hand in hand with Christ, it's a sensation that, I've been able to experience like a couple of times in my life, but it's something that, I've personally feel drawn to and something that, I want to pursue for the rest of my life.
Wow, for sure. Yeah, some great insight we have here. So a little bit about, we could go back to talking about the Htet project that you're working on. I was thinking, because you said you had been to Burma. Talk a little bit about, when were you there?
Yeah, so it was right before I went to academy. So I was probably like 8th grade ended, and then it was the summer, and I was there for 3 months. And so I was there for a pretty significant amount of time. So growing up, my parents had told me of this, this beautiful land and beautiful people and beautiful, great food and such. And, it's almost whimsical, it's like, oh, this place is amazing. And so I got there, and it was a culture shock, I'll be honest. Growing up, learning about I wasn't exposed to, like a third world country. And that was the first culture shock. I was like, wow, I'm blessed, And the fact that my parents experienced life like this, in an environment like this, and to have come out of it and sacrifice, what they love, and for a better life for me, it's something that I will always hold in high regard, because I have to live my life in gratitude, especially of that sacrifice that they made, because I wouldn't be here sitting, But when I was there, I met my grandfather, and when I was there, I remember walking up into, the house that my father grew up in, and it's like a little shack. It used to be like my father family, they used to be blacksmiths. And so in the back, there's like a little coal shed, but it wasn't, it was very something that if this was like the building in America, they'd be like health violations or health codes. Like, it'd be crazy, It's like you can't live there. But here I was, spending like 3 or 2 months with my grandfather here, and I realized a greater appreciation for life in general, and just the fact that I'm blessed, And so what am I going to do with the fact that I have all this given to me, And that just put things into perspective, and that helped me realize that these people are people that I want to help, I want to serve. And so during that time, I remember I got sick because we were eating the food there and the water and such. So I got sick for like 2 weeks, and my little brother he was even more sick than me. My little brother went with me, and we went to a clinic there, and it was run down. There was only one clinic within like this fairly large, village, and she was doing her best, but she had like very little supplies and stuff, but she was doing as much as she could, and that just kind of like lit a spark in me and helped me, like, I want to do this, I want to help these people, like one day. And my goal right now is to, one day either, become a physician or some type and go back to this country and open up a clinic. And someone that I look up to, is Eric B. Hare. He was a missionary in Burma, actually. And so
yellow truck was coming. Sorry.
growing up with those stories.
Sound
Yeah,
effects.
I heard those stories too.
Yeah. So growing with those stories, and I have family members like my grandfather. He's met him, so it's pretty cool. That just kind of comes full circle, you know. I just feel as though that's something that I want to do in my life one day, and so hopefully, God takes me in that direction. But being there being there and just walking around and realizing that despite the fact that they don't have much, these are some of the most happiest people I've ever met. And that was something that was really eye-opening for me because I've never seen so many people so happy with so little. And that was also a culture shock for me because in America, I grew up, it's very materialistic and people was wanting the next thing, the next big thing, the next iPhone, whatever. But then here, I saw I had a nephew, he was so happy about the fact that he had a soccer ball. And he cherished his soccer ball. He would wash it after every game. And just seeing that and realizing, hey, I'm blessed. I need to make sure that I'm not blessed for no reason, And just making sure that, I'm able to give back in any type of way that I can. And just being there, seeing the people, I found a newfound love for my culture and who I am. Because for a while, when you're born in the States, but your family originate from somewhere else, there's a piece of you like, oh, I'm not actually, from there. Or I'm not actually, But part of that is like, I am from there. That's my history, That's my lineage. Like my family was there. And the goal is to, just stay in America. Like, America is great and all. Like, not just to stay here in, land of comfort, but to then go back one day and help the people that, need it. And that's something that my parents have always, instilled in me as well, is we sacrificed our lives so that, you could have this future here. But the whole reason is, for you to go back and help make that situation there better one day, And it's just that it comes back to like the whole life of service. And that's just something that I personally feel super passionate about. It's just, in wherever God takes me, making sure that I am living a life of service. And it's hard at times, obviously, like school gets in the way sometimes, or just personal vendettas, like just things that,
I love what you're saying in the sense of like generational vision.
Yeah.
So it's like your parents had a vision beyond their lifetime, and you're kind of picking that up and experiencing this vision beyond your lifetime of, what can I do to invest in the people that came before me, so to speak, but also to make a way for the people who will come after me. And even the fact that sometimes God can have a generational vision that, like, when your grandfather's working in the, in the blacksmith shop, I don't know whether he ever thought, well, I want something beyond for my children and grandchildren. I would guess that very likely he did. But then there's this texture even sometimes where God is doing things in our experience that are far beyond the blacksmith shop. And yet the blacksmith shop is also this amazing thing too, because you step into it and you realize something about yourself in that process. So
Yeah, and I think it's so cool. Something that just really stood out to me from what you were saying was when you were there and you were younger, you were like, I want to come back and I want to be a doctor and help these people. And here you are studying to be a doctor and you are helping these people in ways that you can here. So I just think that's evidence of God leading you on what you see is your life calling. And that's super inspiring.
Yeah, not waiting to help and when you've, quote, reached your destination, but saying, I'm helping today. Let's help today.
Like
that's something that I've realized.
Life of service. I think you are a glowing example of that.
Thank you. But
great inspiration.
Something I've realized, within this even year is like, I don't have to wait until I have the qualifications to serve. And that's something that was pressing on my heart when this KLA initiative was kind of forming. It's like, hey, like, you have the facilities to help right now, All you have to do is just, take a step. And taking that step was probably one of the harder things, because then you have to, you might get denied, or people might say, no, you can't do this, you can't do that. But I've realized that, just taking that step and realizing that you can serve now Like that kind of just did like a paradigm shift for me, because for the longest time I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna become a doctor first, and then I'm gonna serve, and then I'm gonna open up a clinic, and then I'm gonna, but realizing that I've been placed in a situation where, it's like the journey of becoming that, along the way I can serve. And I just reading about, in the Bible, examples of that, where in the process of becoming who God intended for them to become, they were serving all along.
Yeah.
And that process was just so eye-opening for me, at least.
Yeah. I have a friend, Ingrid Jones, and her big thing, and she works in the public schools, but she also does catering, and her catering, she gives the proceeds to this organization in Haiti, right? So, and she always, her big thing is what's in your hand, is sometimes we're thinking, well, I'll serve when, and God's really just like he said to Moses, like, what's in your hand? He's like a staff. And he's like, well, throw it down. And it became a serpent. Pick it up again. And he's like, now that's going to be a sign for your doubters when you get, and the elders of Israel are like, well, who sent you? And so God is, I think, sometimes just saying, what's in your hand right now? How can you serve right now?
Yeah. I think, especially as college students, we think, oh, we're too broke to help. We're too busy to help. But the thing is, what we have is our youth. What we have is energy. And using that energy in a way that in service of others is one of the greatest gifts of our youth. And just creating a culture where we realize that, and where we're able to, really be willing to invest not only our time and our energy, but our gifts and our talents in a way that is in service of others, is something that is also pressing on my heart. It's like, hey, we can do something amazing if we just let ourselves, if we just give it to God and say, hey, it's yours, and just let him do what he always has done.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing kind of your full circle story and where God is leading you right now. Just thank you so much for coming on and sharing an inspiring story. Thank you all for listening. We will see you next time on Intersect.